Welcome to the TechTitan Webinar Wednesday series from Intermedia. I want to thank you for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule to attend the webinar. My name is Kim Withrow, and I'm the manager of the sales engineering team at Intermedia. And today we're going to be covering some of the specific capabilities that are a part of SecuriSync, also known as SecuriSync. But before we get started, I want to do a quick check-in and make sure that everyone can hear me. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could give me a thumbs up or a smiley emoji using the button at the top center of your screen, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, fabulous. Looks good. All right, I guess you guys can hear me. Wonderful. All right, so for those of you who have attended these TechTitan webinars before with me, some of these slides will be a little bit of a repeat. I'll try to go through them a little bit quickly, but for the newcomers, I just want to go through a couple things here. So Intermedia's Webinar Wednesday is a very popular webinar series that takes place every Wednesday. It's actually broken up into 3 separate tracks. So we have the Business Builder track that's designed to help you as a partner grow your business and ultimately your success with Intermedia. And then we have the TechTitan track, which is what today's webinar is a part of. And that's designed to give you live demos and deep technical dives into features that can bring real value to you and your customers. And these 2 tracks alternate Wednesdays, and they both take place at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then lastly, each week we have a CCAS training, which is our contact center as a software, which takes place at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. So between these 3 tracks, you actually have an opportunity to attend 2 webinars each Wednesday of every week. So to get more information on these webinars or to register, you can go to the https://intermediawebinars.com and you can find the registration link there. Now, I want to hear from you. I really want to make sure that these TechTitan webinars are providing content that you find value in and that are meeting your needs. And so I've created this email address, techtitan@intermedia.net. Please feel free to send over any topic suggestions you have. I'm also interested in positive or constructive feedback as well. I really appreciate anybody taking time to give us some feedback on how we're doing here with these topics. So we're going to be taking about 30 minutes of your time today. About 20 minutes or so will be for the presentation part, and then the last 10 minutes is going to be a Q&A session. So if you have questions, please use that blue square question mark button at the top center of your screen. It's right next to that emoji one that you just used. When you click on that, that opens a little dialog box. It allows you to type in a question. It sends it over to me, the moderator, and then Mike and I will be going through as many of those questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. Also want to talk a little bit about our NFR program. So NFR stands for Not for Resale, and it allows you as a partner to sign up for an account with us that gives you either free or significantly discounted use of Intermedia products. At Intermedia, we believe that the best way to be able to sell a product is to actually use it yourself, and so that allows you to get some experience with it as a user of the product. So if you are interested in signing up for an NFR account, you can call the number on the screen, but I'm also going to start a little poll here. Let me just finish this slideshow and I'll start a poll. What I'm going to do is just ask you to reply to this poll if you would like to have your account rep contact you about setting up an NFR account. If you already have an NFR account, great, you can just answer that way. But if you don't have an NFR account, I'd like to make it easy for you. So rather than having the onus on you to reach out to your partner account person or to, call that number, I figured I'd do this little poll here. So I'll leave this up for about another 10 seconds and then we'll go. All right, great. Let me go back in here and start my presentation. All right, also wanted to let you know about a really special webinar that's happening next week. So Mike Gold is the CEO of Intermedia, and next week he's going to be doing a mid-year partner update. That is going to include some new partner benefits that are going to be rolled out, as well as a review of our product roadmap for the second half of 2020, and some other things that I'm not privy to. So, and it'll end with a live Q&A session with Mike and some of the other executives. So if you're interested in signing up for that webinar, again, you just go to the https://intermediawebinars.com. You'll see that webinar listed there, and you will be able to register for that. All right, well, we're really close to our content, but before we get started, I just want to do a brief introduction of myself and Mike, who's going to be handling the bulk of today's webinar. As I mentioned, my name is Kim Withrow. I manage the sales engineering team here at Intermedia. I also manage the sales product specialist team. And I'm actually coming up on my 10-year anniversary here at Intermedia this September, and I'm actually really proud of that. I started as a level 2 support engineer. Oh, thanks for the clap there, Andrew. Appreciate it. I started back in 2010 as a level 2 support engineer. And then after a couple of years or so, I moved into management of the data onboarding team. And I worked on that team for about 7 years in various management positions. And then about 3 years ago, I moved over and started managing the sales engineering team, which has just been a fabulous experience for me. I really love the team. And then just recently, I also took over managing the sales product specialist team. Let me introduce to you Mike Vitale. He's obviously the one in the suit coat there at the bottom of the screen. So Mike has been a sales engineer with Intermedia for over 3 years now. However, he actually, came to Intermedia with 20+ years experience in the technology industry. So Mike's career has included things like, LAN and WAN networking, telephony, security, desktop productivity, and various cloud services over the years. So his focus today is really on Intermedia security and application services, and that builds on Mike's experience and desire to help make communication easier and more accessible for everyone. So if you've worked with the sales engineering team in the past, you've probably encountered Mike's smooth and informative demos. He works with partners daily to support their selling from a technical perspective, primarily around our archiving, encryption, SecuriSync, and Office 365 products. All right, so that's us. And without further ado, I will turn things over to Mike, and we'll get to the meat of the matter here.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. And thanks for everybody for joining. You should be able to see my screen. And just like Kim asked, if you can click on that screen and just let me know if anywhere, perfect. What I want to ask too is, great, I'm glad people can see that. I do have a quick question for those who are on the phone. This is intended, we're going to go a little deeper into SecuriSync. In the past, we have some other courses that either I've done or these TechTitan videos. We've looked at the user interface. We're certainly going to look at the admin side. You can send, again, the emojis across. Who has on the phone experience showing the admin features? And I'm going to click to that. Here's SecuriSync here. And this is our file sync and share service. Who has talked with customers about these, or has about the admin side, just to get some idea of who's there? Okay. All right. So we have a few people, perhaps who have not. All right. So this may be new to a few, and I'll go into that, and that's fine. That's what I just want to get an understanding of. So I'm going to get right into it. The 4 areas, and really I think while you're here, is to look at devices, or as I put in the description, device pinning. That's allowing certain devices. We're going to look at the policies area, storage management, and audit logs. Now, really by design, the SecuriSync admin interface is pretty intuitive. So if you're new to this, and after a little bit of time, you'll get into it. There is a lot here in these sections. So certainly the user tab is pretty clean, and we can get into that. But as we look at policies and others, I'm going to hit on a few of those so you can get an idea as it relates to today's topic. So the first section certainly is looking at devices and what people have. That is coming up a lot in today's discussions, certainly as if people hadn't been working from home, many are today, or in the office or remotely, or however that's defined for various businesses. So if you want to know what devices users are using. So when you're talking with customers and you want to get some visibility into that, certainly clicking on the Devices tab can do that. But for an individual, if I double click, and we're going to be using Alex's account today, if I double click on Alex North, I can go right into his account and I can see the types of devices that he has access to that. I'm going to show this in a different way, but right now we're just going to focus on what he has. So we get a few things visible to us, quite a bit of information visible to you as an administrator. And if it isn't clear, again, this is of course the admin side. So generally your users would, employees of an organization wouldn't have visibility to this, only the account owners and people have the correct privileges. So looking at this here, I have visibility to a few things. First of all, Alex's account, but I can get visibility just right away to what type of device. Windows, of course, and that could be different types of Windows, but in this case, these are Windows 10 as I roll over that. And I also have an iOS device set up. This happens to be an iPhone type device that's set up. And it's indicated by a mobile device. And here's the device type. Now, there are two types of devices, and this is going to come up in a couple areas that I'm going to show today. One of them, and if you're working with customers who provide their own corporate devices to employees, which many do, you can designate a device during the setup as a corporate device. But devices can also be a personal device, and really the differences between these two is a corporate device allows the user to be able to save content in more locations. So if I come over here to a personal device, everything would be saved under my SecuriSync folder. So the benefit is with a corporate device is not only allowing users to save things under my SecuriSync, but also perhaps your desktop or a documents folder or something else. So there is a little more flexibility. And that relates to the backup policy. So again, if we're looking here, and I look at, actually, I'll show you the default policy that I've set up as an administrator. I have selected as an administrator that people can back up files and content under my SecuriSync and desktop and documents, but not include some of these others. If a user changes it, and I allow that, and I'll show that in a little bit, you'll see that desktop was removed, but these others are there. Or there's some other flexibility, and you have control over how those are set up. The other piece is, of course, is I can look at the type of device that someone has, and in this case, we can see the mobile device or this PC. The version is important. If you're new to SecuriSync or haven't seen the file share and sync service in a while, a number of months ago, we added not only ability to sync content from a device, but also stream content. So if you have common scenarios, if you have a organization where they don't like a credit union or a bank, or sometimes I'm seeing this more in healthcare, where the organization doesn't want any content on that local device, we now have a streaming client. Well, some of these older clients wouldn't have that ability to log or load that content. So simply updating that client would be able to do that. And then this we're going to come back to too, and this is the important one, is can you wipe or remove SecuriSync data from a device? And certainly the answer is yes. So I'm going to go back to the Users tab, and under Devices, I can get visibility not only to a single user, but of course everybody else in the organization. Now here we can see all of the more recent accesses that Alex has, or access devices if I want to, and others as well. So you can see file server. So if you had users or customers who are have a supported Windows file server like Windows File Server 2012 R2 or newer, you can sync a file server to SecuriSync. And here's the personal and corporate devices. If I need to, again, another way is if I just look under the search for North, it's going to pull up that same information again. And you can sort those. And you can sort by all users, regular or external users. So SecuriSync can be extended. And then, of course, the types of devices. Some of that will come up as we look at the audit log. So I'm going to just clear that search, and we can see all of that information here in front of us. So the next portion of this that I want to show in is related to devices as we're going through this is the Policies tab. And as we start to get a little more granular, Under the Policies tab, as I mentioned, there are many different types of policies that you can change. One of them, the default or the first tab that you'll see is the backup policy. And again, this relates to what, as I was mentioning before, is it a corporate or a personal device? And this is where you would make those changes and how people are using that. As I am doing this, the access policy, and this gets into one of the description of device pinning, or really an access policy. Previously, from a few months ago or several months ago, the option really is a user could put SecuriSync or load the SecuriSync application on as many devices as they needed to, so unlimited, and that's the default. What the product team has done is now allowed you as an administrator to set the number of devices that someone would use, and particularly now, as people, again, are working remotely or from home, however that's defined, you may want to set these type of parameters, or the customer may want to set these type of parameters, and that's certainly an option. And what happens is as you set that, what you will see is something like this. I'm going to show it to you here on another screen in just a minute. You will have the ability to, as you're doing that, to allow someone to show it to you this way. Okay, as if someone were to sign in and previously they had access, now they will see that device it's limited. So if you're setting this up for the first time or you haven't seen this, this may be the reason why that device is limited. There's two options, of course: either increase that limit, and that is a global setting, so that will affect all users today. And then the other option, of course, is someone could remove SecuriSync access from another device potentially. And that's where, again, looking at the number of devices as we did before and getting some visibility into how old, how long people have had devices, maybe this older one that's 2 years old, you could remove that, for instance, and then align with the retention policy that you've set. So that's available, again, policies and the access policies, and how you can enable that portion. The other that I want to touch on too is, as I was showing this, when I'm looking at devices, and you can, the default policy that we have set up for a backup policy is here. And this is what I've set, the policies, backup policies, and it aligns with this. Now, right now, you can also allow users to override the folder selection that I've set. If you do, then they can choose to back up videos or pictures or so on and so forth. Otherwise, uncheck that, and they can't. And in the event that they want to make a change, the users would see this if they don't have that access. And as you can see, the administrator requires you to comply with the company backup policy. Now, this may come into play if someone is using a device and they are using, or they want to add, music or pictures or videos. Again, some may be using a corporate device, but they're using it as their only device. And what happens is, while you can do that, you may not want to be backing up that information for a variety of reasons. One of the main one is storage. And I'll show you that as we get to it. So those are a couple of areas that you can modify and certainly change. And I'll set that. So that's the access policy. As I'm moving along then here, I will mention too, and this comes up in a number of our conversations, as people are accessing devices or they're signing to SecuriSync online, is there two-factor authentication? And yeah, there is. So when you're signing in, when I was setting up for a lot of this today, and certainly if I sign in, into my corporate device and on my network, this would apply less. But if you're on a remote device, you may set, of course, two-factor authentication. Now, you don't have to, but I would recommend at least consider it. And what this does, if it isn't clear, is it's just setting a second authentication. Most of us are doing this today, but in case you aren't, it requires a push note, or excuse me, in this case, push notification to your mobile phone, and you would sign in or really just accept or deny access. and it provides another layer of security. So that's built into the service. The next section I want to look at is storage management. And storage management here is, as you're looking at this and you're talking with customers, understanding how this service is perhaps different than others and some of the benefits. First of all, right off the bat is this service is file sync and share. It's pooled storage. Some services aren't. So if in this case I have 55 users as part of this organization, and in this case 100 gig plan will get me 5.5 terabytes of pooled storage, and that is for all of my standard users. So in this case right now we're using 18 gigs, but you may also take SecuriSync and extend this to others as well. So an idea is if you have a hospital in a healthcare, I mean, you can substitute that for another company you may be working with, but we'll go with a hospital who might be working with a billing group, billing team, or a different company altogether, and they want to take SecuriSync and they need to share SecuriSync information back and forth in a folder or a set of folders. Well, that's possible. You can take and extend SecuriSync to another's. There isn't a license required, but what that external team would be using, in this case 2 users, is storage that you have. And this would be something that it's a benefit, but just know that it's utilizing this. The other thing too is because this is pooled storage, one folder or maybe an administrator, or if you're using this with a file server, may take up multiple terabytes potentially, and the rest of the users then would have enough storage, or they would have what's left in the pool of storage. So they could exceed this. It wouldn't necessarily be 100 gig. Another user could use 500 gigs for instance. And I see some questions coming in, so we'll be answering those. So that's what's certainly that's what's here. And as you're setting that up, just know that this is how this certainly can be used. And again, I see some of those questions, so I'll see if I can get to those here shortly. The last, or in addition to storage management, the other pieces that you want to take a look at is it's not just setting this for these users, but all effects also can affect some other areas that you're configuring. And that is as we click back here again, back to policies and the backup policies, what type of content are you saving? And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but if there are devices where users are saving their own pictures and videos, and maybe these are pictures of their family or pets, you may want to remove those to make use for more, I'll say business-oriented content. So that's important. The other can be the retention policy affects your storage, because the retention policy is you can, if the organization you're working with, your customer has a certain retention policy, you may set that, and it can either be by days like I have here, or a certain time. Well, if you set it to never, a benefit of SecuriSync is you can continue to save versions and multiple versions, but you can that all affects the storage amount. So as you're working with a customer, they may think 10 gigs would be plenty, but when you start to look at this, or when files are deleted, that all utilizes the storage device as well. And then again, when we get back to devices, going all the way back around, the types of devices, again, if it's corporate or personal, could potentially affect the storage. So in terms of planning, that's something that you'll want to take a look at. The last piece is the audit log, and the audit log, we're seeing more requests for this, whether it's with this or for email archiving and doing auditing. There's certainly an audit log built in, and you can look at all of the different types of events. Now I'm looking at all the file events, and the way this works is the type of events that we have here, but also what was actually done, deleted, what file and folder, where was that location. So some of it's on a SecuriSync. I may have some here that are in mobile, and I'm looking at file events or add or share events. This is for the users. This is also auditing information that is for the administrator as well. And the way this looks in terms of an export is that's all. Is you can export this into a CSV. The last piece that I will look at here in devices is you can, if someone loses or a device unfortunately is stolen, you may wipe that device. And simply, I would enter the day of the week is the request. And what happens is that device that you have that would look like this happens to be an iOS device. Once you send out that wipe request and someone tries to make a change, let's say they go from folder view or they click into a folder, this is what will happen. Is you'll get this message that the data has been wiped. Now, you could either, if need be, once that person recovers their device, they would simply sign back into this device or reload the SecuriSync data. They still have SecuriSync data, so in online. So the data is not being wiped, but certainly removed from that machine. If you needed to remove the person, from the device or accessing the device, you could certainly go back into the user section as where we started and remove them altogether. So those are the 4 areas I wanted to focus on: devices, policies, management, and audit log. And I know we have a number of questions coming in, so I want to make sure we have time to get to those.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Mike. That was wonderful. If you could stop your screen share, I'll go ahead and start on the questions. I did move some of them from the chat over into the Q&A section. So let's start with those, and then we'll go back into the chat. Okay, so a question came up the other day, and there is an unlimited storage version, correct?
Correct. Yes, there is. So you can have unlimited, and I know with unlimited is you may set that it really is an unlimited amount. We have some upper limits of maybe more than 1 million files, and there's things like that, but it really is an unlimited. There are, however, if by extension, if there are questions about when using file server sync, you'll see it in the description, and I showed it a little bit, is a 1 terabyte per user limit, but you really can't exceed that. We just had to have some needed to set a limit, but that's what's there.
All right.
Thanks,
great.
Steve.
Yeah, so is the audit log able to show when folders shared by web link are accessed?
You can see the date. It's not something I can.
You want me to stop the Q&A so you can show it, or?
No, it would be, and I want to make sure, I want to see if I can get to as many of these questions. If you can, that may be something I can follow up on, because we have your email, and I'll take a look at that one. You can see the web links, and I'll just have to take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that one.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Yep.
On that one, Keenan. All right. But with the unlimited, is there something similar to the fair use policy in play on voice?
On voice, fair use play, Steve, I don't know if that is, if you're talking about like GDPR rules where it's.
No, he's talking about how I think on the voice side they have there's a fair use policy, meaning you have unlimited minutes or whatever, but if you start to go up into like millions of minutes, that's not considered fair use. And
we theoretically, yes, we do. I can look for and I'm glad you asked the question. I can look to, it's really, we have an upper limit, and it's actually documented in one of our KBs, about 1 million records, 1 million individual files. We really can go beyond that. So that would be as close as I could point out. But Steve, we're gonna have all these all the questions, so we can follow up with you there. But it is in the KBs, that limit.
Okay. All right, great. All right, next question. So is wiping a device the only way to remove it? From Steve Moore.
You could remove access to it. So if you provided, so you could, under the users tab I was showing, you could remove access to SecuriSync. And what would happen is that next time that individual tries to sign in, they no longer have access. So that's one way to do it. But what I want to, if the question is, let's say somebody leaves the organization, I would send out the wipe request, because then you're sure that anything that was on that device is removed, even if they had access. So that's why I would do that.
Right. Okay, makes sense. Okay, how do you move items from a user that's left to another person? So what would be your recommended best practice for that?
You, as an administrator, there is an add-in option you can manage content, and you could Oh, if someone moved, you could provide access to another folder to another person. You could also move as an administrator. Now, a user couldn't necessarily do this, but you could, as a administrator, move content from one folder to another. So if you needed, you know, that's one way to do it. You could also take that folder and create a new user access. So if someone left, just create a new account for that person.
Gotcha. Okay. If you only have one user, can you set to unlimited? From Larry.
We have, if you only have one user, we still have, I think, at least a 3 or a 5 user, depending on how you set it up, at least 3 user minimum. So you would have those, you could set each one of those. So if you had one user, you would still be purchasing, or the account, I suppose, would you still be purchasing a 3 user account. But yeah, you could set those all to
Right.
unlimited.
Perfect. Makes sense. Okay. I'm concerned with HIPAA compliance. How long are audit logs kept?
The audit logs, what in the screenshot or the screen that I was showing you of the account, it's the last 90 days, but you could go back for, there is a drop down that I didn't show, that you could go back from whenever the data, you know, was started, and you could keep that. So nothing will be removed. Now, under the policies tab, if you as an administrator decide to, there is a retention policy. Under the retention policy, if you choose never or delete files older than, I was showing like 3 years, for instance, as one of the defaults, then the data would be removed.
All
Otherwise,
right.
the audit log
Excellent.
and the content would all be, you know, all be there.
Okay. Makes sense. So scenario, a client is, oh, we've gone over time here, so let's, but we only have a couple questions left, so we'll try to power through these. So scenario, client is a video editor. He wanted to know if there is a receipt, like a read receipt, we have an email, I guess, to show when his client opened the file that he sent them.
No, that's a request that's come in. You could see, not a read receipt. We have I'm seeing this a lot. We have more video editors or people who are, you know, I mean, it's just very common. It's what we're doing, honestly, right now, you know, sharing through video. So no, there isn't a read receipt. If someone uploaded content, you would be able to see that, but not necessarily a read receipt. So you can see the uploads, and if everyone's sharing a folder, you could see that, but not yet the read receipt. I believe that's on the roadmap.
Gotcha. All right.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Let's see. Interesting. Not letting me advance to the next question. Can you give it a shot, Mike?
Yep. Let me see.
Oh wait, it just worked, actually. So Yahoo, that's what he really wanted to know when they uploaded.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that one was about.
Yeah, that's about what we were just
but
asking.
Sounds like he's happy.
That's correct. If you're sharing a folder and both people have SecuriSync, or you know, both, you can see and you can follow a folder. And if you're following, we do that internally all the time. You know, with projects we're working on, you can pin or fold. There's a section where you can follow the folders and see when something has been uploaded. Now, if you're sending a folder or a file externally, which I wasn't sure if that's what you were asking, there are some limits on when someone downloads that, but I know that's a question that's come up.
Okay. Any idea when file streaming will be available for the Mac?
Yeah, it's on the roadmap. I would honestly have to go back and take a look. Now, Larry, we should have all your information, so I could follow up with you. I can't say if it will be available in 2020. I think for later this year, but before I say for sure, I need to take a look at that on the roadmap. I will say, because this is part of our, you know, broader UCAS service, we are spending, and you know, rightfully so, a lot of dev and time with the service.
Okay. That's a great reason for everyone to have SecuriSync.
Yeah, that's great.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Okay. Interesting. Can you advance it, Mike? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Devices. Just to confirm, the white button is the only way to remove old unwanted devices for existing users. There's no delete device button, correct?
There's no, let's see, under devices. Yeah, there's not a way to delete if I understand what you're saying, to delete the device if you wipe it, or again, if you remove the user from the account. So if you're asked, yeah, it really would be to remove, or excuse me, to click on that wipe SecuriSync data from the device, and then you completely remove that from the list of options.
Okay, great. So there's only two more. I
Yes.
appreciate you if you've been hanging on here. So can a device type be changed from personal to corporate, or vice versa, based on changes in the company structure? And that's from Jan.
You can. So you may change the device type in the devices section, or if you click on the user's name, I could change it, and I'm doing it right now. I know you can't see it, but you may change from personal to from another device type so from personal to corporate, just to finish off on that thought. You may also see or change or force the policy of the backup policy, like I was showing, where you may have a corporate policy and keep to that. And if someone changes to a personal device, that could be a little different as well. Or that could be, what a personal device will do.
All right, last but not least, when will we be able to restrict devices on a per user basis versus globally?
That is something we've talked about on the roadmap. I don't have an ETA one that's available. That's why I wanted to point it out, because that question comes up quite a bit on devices, and just make it clear that today it is a global setting, but I don't know yet.
All right, excellent. Well, everyone, that concludes our webinar for today. I want to thank you for taking the time to join. If you're still here and you're interested in attending the CEO Update webinar that's going to be taking place next Wednesday with Mike Gold, the CEO of Intermedia, when this meeting closes, you'll be redirected to a URL where you can register for that. So again, Mike, thank you very much for everything you did, and thank you everyone for attending, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.